Welcome to TV International, a program with news and analysis from the Middle East, focusing on Iran. I'm Patti de Bonitas.
And I'm Fari Borspuya, presenting today's program. In this program, we'll be looking at the growing campaign in support of Jamal Saberi, who has been detained by the Japanese government, and they're planning to return him to hands of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And as you know, there's been a growing campaign on that. We'll be discussing the situation today, and hopefully we'll be interviewing Farshad Hosseini, representative of the International Federation of Iranian Refugees. And hopefully in the second part of another part of the program, we'll be discussing
Noroz messages from Mousavi and from President Obama, and analyzing them, what they actually have to say.
Yes, as the Iranian New Year was an opportunity for various political trends and movements to express their views on what they actually want to change the environment in Iran. It will be interesting to actually analyze the messages. But let's just start with the growing campaign in support of Jamal Saberi. Patti, briefly tell us about the issues that Jamal is facing in Japan.
Okay, Jamal has been detained, and he's a failed asylum seeker in Japan. He has been living there for 20 years, and at the moment he is in detention with the view of, or the intention of, deporting him back to Iran. He's a political activist. He has been so for 18 years. We have actually been yesterday to the Japanese embassy in London, and what they said is that the Justice Ministry of the Japanese Ministry of Justice has no compelling reason not to deport him.
I mean, to plan to deport him.
Yes, they're planning. There's nothing in the way legally, and the person that we spoke to, the diplomat that we spoke to, First Secretary of the Japanese Embassy in London, said Japan is a democratic country, and they, if we had any complaints about the way Jamal's asylum was being handled, we should
work the government out.
Yes, and so and he denied any kind of political underhanded dealings with the Islamic Republic. Well, they called this a sovereign state.
We'll come to the political dealings with the Islamic regime in a moment. But let's, as we said earlier, this is a growing campaign. Tell us briefly what's happening in relation to the campaign. Who are people becoming concerned about this issue, and why?
Actually, it's really, we have started the campaign about 3 weeks ago now, and it's really now that people more and more come, and you have a lot of blogs, a lot of organizations now actually picking up on Jamal, on the Free Jamal campaign. What people are actually seeing is people know what is happening in Iran and what has happened to the protesters there, even the protesters who go to a peaceful demonstration. So they're very concerned that the Japanese government thinks they can just deport somebody like Jamal back to the hands of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So people are really, they're coming out now. There are several organizations. There is one in the US-based Mission Free Iran, for example. They're organizing their second protest now. And what we have actually done from the Free Jamal campaign, the 31st of March, which is Wednesday, there's a global day of action for Jamal, for the release of Jamal, and against the anti-refugee policies of Japan, because there's a lot of stuff going on. Because why we have done this is the UN Special Rapporteur on the human rights of migrants from the UN, his name is Jorge Bustamante, he's a Mexican national. He is right now in Japan to report and to have a look on the human rights situation of migrants, including refugees, because there's over 70 refugees in one detention center have been on hunger strike. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and Jamal is right in the middle of this. And Jamal is a very, very clear case of what the Japanese government is doing or not doing, actually. Yeah. So next Wednesday, 31st of March.
Yeah, and that's International Day in support of Jamal and for freedom, and to highlight the plight of refugees in Japan. I think it's very important. It's not only Jamal, it's thousands of Japanese. I think last year Japan very proudly deported
100,000 refugees
Over
in 1 year,
100,000.
overstayers. So people whose asylum was finished, and it's a big drive, I think, to get rid of over 200,070 or something. So he's apparently, Jamal probably falls into this, and maybe the Japanese government just wants to clear the space. There's also yesterday the diplomat from the Japanese embassy we talked to. He said yes. He didn't really have good arguments. You know, he said the Japanese government, for example, they were concerned about the human rights situation in Iran, and at the same time I said, okay, so how come there are no compelling reasons not to deport him? And he says, well, the experts on Iran and Japan have said that. Well, I don't know, expert. I don't know what kind of expert.
The experts in Japan have said
that there is that everything is okay to deport him. Yeah. Very sadly, so. And I don't understand how a Japanese government can say they are concerned about human rights violations in Iran and at the same time deport somebody to Iran.
Yes.
This is quite...
and I think there is a place for the voice of the Japanese people here to be heard. I think Maria Rohali from Mission Free Iran has actually written a letter to the Japanese people, and she said, she's highlighted the plight of Jamal, and I've said people of Japan needs to raise their voice against the inhumane policies of deportation that Japanese government is pursuing at the moment, and Jamal is one of those cases which has captured international sort of opinion, and I think that's very important to actually highlight the plight of many refugees in Japan. Our message to the Japanese government is that Japanese government is that you have no right to deny refugee status to Jamal. He's been there for 18 years. 20 years, and that's a hell of a time for Japanese government to actually say this is to deport him is totally wrong and inhumane, and also to claim there is no compelling evidence that Iran is a dictatorship and it's okay to send people back to Iran. In particular, a person like Jamal, who has been a vocal activist and one of the main faces of Iranian opposition in Japan. That's why I think a lot of people are enraged, both in the Iranian community and internationally. So our message to the Japanese government is that if you do not release Jamal, you'll be shamed into accepting his case. And next Wednesday, 31st of December, you would hear that loud and 31st of March, you'll hear that loud and clear. We'll have a short break now, and we'll come back. We'll come back to hopefully interview Farshad Hosseini, special representative of the International Federation of Iranian Refugees, who's actually traveling to Japan to take part in the protest next Wednesday. So we'll be back in a moment to interview Farshad Hosseini.